If we can experience the freedom that comes with working with the process rather than against it, that's a huge step in the right direction to creating true freedom of time and space and money freedom.
Have you ever wondered what it would be like if you followed your passion, really went all in? That's exactly what we explore here on The Purpose Project. I sit down with people who are doing what lights them up, entrepreneurs, creatives, mystics, dreamers, and we talk about the real journey, the ebbs, the flows, and what it takes to live your purpose. So if you're ready to be inspired, let's dive in. Hello and welcome. My name is Cyndal Wallace. I am your host and welcome to the Purpose Project. Today I'm here with my friend Squid. He is a musician, he is an artist, and he is really passionate about inspiring others to also act on their highest excitement and bringing in more creativity in life. So thank you for being here, Squid. I appreciate you. How would you define purpose and passion? Do they overlap for you or are they individual for you?
Personally, I think your passion points towards your purpose. And for me, like my passion is the gifts that I naturally have been given and feel inclined to explore, which is art, music, things that I've been doing since I was really young, honestly, and that just excite me, really. Things that make your face and your heart light up and your energy infinite, really. Things that give you energy rather than take away. I think that defines passion. And then purpose is, I think, how you use those things that you're passionate about. So for me, sharing my art and music and inspiring other people to do the same and pursue their art, their music, their crafts, their creative process to enrich and inspire and bring more joy in their lives as well.
I love that. That is such a huge mission, and that is so important, especially bringing in more creativity and more art. So, how are you currently acting on your highest excitement, purpose, and passions presently?
At the moment, I'm remodeling my house, which is a different form of creativity and something that I've also been doing since I was young. I grew up under a home builder. My dad was a home builder for 50 years. Remodeling, home building, framing, drywall, all this stuff is second nature to me. Making a house look beautiful is one of the things that I enjoyed as a profession. For a few years, I was a professional home painter, so I got a lot of finishing work and things like that on my belt, and making homes look beautiful, I think, is another form of art that people often overlook. You go into a house and you look, wow, it's beautiful, but a lot of that is like the paint, the finishing, the trim, the color palettes, and the way things mesh together. A lot of that is a painter, decorator's type of job. But doing that to my own house is providing me with a lot of benefit in a lot of ways of enriching my own home, doubling my living space, giving my children more room to expand into their own rooms, and just making it everything that I want it to be, as well as building out my art studio so that I can dive deeper into creating and getting back to music and art and creating everything that I want to create in the space that I feel comfortable to do so. Getting this remodel out of the way is going to be a big step into going deeper into my creative practices that I've been putting to the side for a little bit at the moment.
Has creating and remodeling your home, has that sparked a different type of creativity within you? And is this also something that you're going to be able to look back on and be like, wow, I did this really big thing and it was mostly just you?
I've been a plumber, an electrician, a drywaller, framer, pretty much done it all this year, and a lot of it I've learned from doing YouTube videos. YouTube University,
Yep,
it's
one of my
it
favorites.
rocks. I learned just how to do tile just from watching YouTube videos. I tiled my whole shower floor already, and I got to do my walls still for my shower. Tile is something interesting that I never touched before. I did a pretty good job for my first time, I think. It wasn't too bad. I made it work, and yeah, just being able to make it all exactly how I want it to be. Looking at it, I go down there every day, and if I'm not working on it, I'm just staring at things and enjoying it, and just looking and thinking about what I'm going to do next, what the next steps are, how I'm going to chip away at it a little bit more each day. I set my goal to at least do one small thing down there every day to move the needle a little bit, even if it's just cleaning up a little wall or taking a couple screws out of the wall or put a couple screws in the wall or whatever it is. It's just one little thing that I don't have to do the next time around. And it actually has been a huge thing for releasing that from my brain space. I've been noticing each time I check a thing off the list, cross a thing off, it's just this huge weight out of my brain that I don't have to think about that anymore. I don't have to do that again. I can just move forward on to the next thing.
And when you cross that little thing off the list, your brain gets a little boost of dopamine,
Yeah,
which also feels really nice too.
for sure.
And as you were saying, like it really helps clear away some of that mental like clutter as well.
I've got lists scattered all over the house. I've got one big one that has all the things that I have to do for the house, and that one has been a lot slower crossing things off. But once I get like a full room done, it's that room's done. All of that painting has been done, or that whole project's off to the side now. It's been great, but yeah, just that boost of dopamine, it keeps you motivated, keeps you moving
Satisfying.
forward, and it keeps you satisfied with, hey, I'm making progress. Like I'm actually physically seeing some changes in my life and the things that I'm doing. I apply that back to my art, and making physical marks on a canvas is essentially the same thing as clearing those emotions out of my brain and out of my body. If I'm putting those down on a canvas, I'm marking that moment in time where I've released that emotion, and I can look at that and say, that was there. I put that there last year. I don't have to feel that thing again, or I don't have to revisit that. That's the physical mark that it's been taken care of, and it's time to move on from that. Or I can reflect on that, but know that I'm not carrying that anymore. It's there on the canvas.
I think that it's really powerful. That's a beautiful thing that art and music does, that it doesn't have to live inside of us and we can get it out and give
Yeah.
it a different space for it to live in and take up space without it taking up space in our mind and our heart.
Yeah, exactly. I related a lot to the idea of writing down whatever your deepest fear is or something on a piece of paper and then throwing it into a fire so that it can be burned away. Just having a visual mark and memory and experience for your brain to make those connections of, hey, I released this thing at that time. It makes a huge wonder of difference, and you can do that in any different kind of way you want, really. Crafts, art, music, building, your day-to-day job, if you choose to do so, as the way that you make those mental road marks.
Absolutely. And it's all about moving forward. And I know that I've said this before, but it's like from the book Atomic Habits, that if we do 1% progress every day, by the end of the year, we have like a 38% increase. And 1% feels way more manageable than I have to be 100% every single day, which
For
is just not
sure.
obtainable. And so I do want to ask, though, in regards to like your music and your art, what got you into that? How did you start pursuing that path?
So I had actually been really interested in music and art since I was a kid, starting with instruments in like fourth grade. I started playing cello. By fifth grade, I changed my mind and went to saxophone. I played saxophone for a couple years. And then after that, started learning guitar. After that, started learning drums, and then started moving into more abstract instruments like didgeridoos and singing bowls and exploring sound healing. My journey through music really just evolved through being interested and curious about new instruments and different sounds and how to play things. If there was an instrument near me, I wanted to learn how to play it out of pure curiosity. How does it work? How does it make the sounds? How does it sound good? How does it sound bad? All the important things to know if you want to make music. But just exploring harmonies was a huge thing. After this car accident, I was 16 and broke my pelvis in 3 places, ruptured my bladder, and came pretty close to dying at the time. At the time I was 16, I was in a 1968 Volkswagen Bug, so it had zero type of safety features, airbags, anything like that. So the thing that actually saved my life was a lap seat belt. So just went over my lap that had been bolted into a street sign that had been bolted into the floor because the floor of those old bugs was prone to rusting out. So my neighbor that I had bought the car from had actually fixed the floor so that the seat was usable and bolted that lap belt in there. If it weren't for that, I would have been thrown out the other side of the car and definitely wouldn't have made it then. But luckily I did. I spent a lot of time in the hospital, about a week in the ICU of a couple different surgeries and just monitoring how everything was functioning again. Had a lot of time on a whole lot of opioids to think about what the hell is life about? What are we doing here if it could just end like that?
Yeah.
What do we do with life if it's that precious? And why don't people treat it more precious if it's that fragile?
Mhm.
We all drive cars every day. We all drive really fast every day on the freeway, drive like jerks. It's really scary to think that we are playing a juggling game with glass balls, and at any moment that glass ball could fall and shatter and never be again. In that hospital stay, I decided if I'm still here, it must be for a reason, because I wouldn't come that close to dying just to survive and not live some sort of interesting life about it. I figured if I was still here, there was a reason for it, or else I would have been pulled away then.
Yeah.
And I went on a discovery mission. I wanted to know what that was. And at the time, I was painting a picture of that Volkswagen Bug.
Yeah.
It was my first ever acrylic painting that I had started, and I was about halfway through it when I got in that accident, and then finished it the following year, which was really difficult, but also gave me a chance to revisit that experience and look at it from a different perspective and heal it in a lot of ways, come to peace with it,
Yeah.
and also discover a lot about myself in that process that I can use painting and use art as a way to get that pain out of me and express it in a more positive way rather than passing pain down the line, which is a common theme in society of you hurt me, so I'm going to hurt the next person because I'm hurt, and that's not the way that we heal. I think creativity in general, creating something from nothing is the path to move forward in healing any type of wound that we might be struggling with.
And after your car accident and after this point of introspection, what do you think was the biggest insight or the biggest takeaway that you were able to get from after the car accident?
I think it was the biggest takeaway is that life is short. We have to enjoy it. We have to make the most of it while we have it, and that the way to do so is by serving others. I think that that was what I realized more than anything is that we're here to take care of each other, and if it wasn't for other people or other personalities, we'd be talking to ourselves all the time. It would be us alone in our head. The contrast of experiences is what helps us grow, whether it be something positive or negative or just a different perspective to learn from. We have to have contrasting experiences in order to have a full picture, just like a black and white. A black and white picture works because of contrast. If it was all light, it'd just look white. If it was all black, it'd all be black. So there has to be the light and the dark. And I think this is my best example of that. The dark and the light both have their place, and that the contrast of experiences must happen in order to complete a whole and balanced picture. And this picture in particular is extremely balanced, which often makes it calming, but also boring in a way where it's not exciting, it's not overstimulating to the mind. But I treat my artwork as visual meditations. They're meant to be calming, they're meant to be less stimulating for the mind because we're always so overstimulated with the screen time that we have every day. To combat that, I wanted to bring this energy into stillness in photographs and still pictures. This picture in particular, the contrast here is the dark being destruction, time, and more forceful energy, and the light being more allowing, more heart centered growth and things that are timeless. The contrasts there are really just what life is. It's all contrast. It's ups and downs. It's light and dark. It's day and night. It's duality in every single way. And without the contrast of experiences, we wouldn't have such a beautiful picture.
Yeah.
And it's true with art as well. The stronger the contrast of a photo or image, the more drawn to it you naturally are. And that's just a fact of psychology and art. It's an aspect of art that is like the first thing you learn in art school. Is contrast. You have to have a high contrast to make things interesting. If you have a low contrast, then it's too hard to distinguish one thing from another.
Right. Yeah, I really love the parallels to this life that we live and this waking reality that we experience. And when I really believe that when we can embrace our shadows, we can love them, maybe we can integrate our shadows, then this also helps us become more whole, right?
Yeah.
And just like with your beautiful picture that you painted here, when we can integrate the shadow with the light, we can then experience more of this homeostasis and more peace of mind. And when we go through the ebbs of life, having even gratitude for the ebbs of life, that can really change the way that we even think and feel about an ebb, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely.
It's just not the easy thing to do, especially when we are in the sauce, as I
Yeah.
like to call it, because the sauce is sticky and sometimes it's hard to get out of it. But when we can take something that we don't prefer, be able to change our mindset, be able to change our perspective around it, then we can take something that we don't prefer and make it into something that we do prefer.
And I see that as a direct relation with the creation process and like painting, for instance. If you make a mistake, a happy little tree, right?
Balbras, yes.
There's no mistakes, there's happy little accidents because you can always make an accident into something that you do prefer, as you just said. It's going through the creative process and making the mistakes and being okay with the mistakes and transforming them or alchemizing them into something new and working with them is how you learn to grow and ebb and flow with what's happening rather than trying to force it into a box of perfection that you want it to be. One of the greatest healing aspects that I've discovered in art and the process of it over the years, so I've been painting now for 15 years or so, is that they never end up exactly as I expect them to. There's always mistakes somewhere, and letting go of those mistakes is a huge part of the art creative process, and that's what most people are held back from in the beginning, is just they don't want to start because they don't want to make a mistake, but that's the whole process. You're supposed to make mistakes. You're supposed to figure it out by trying something and see if it works, and if it doesn't, then you try something different. And that's how every painter has ever learned to paint, and that's how every athlete has ever learned to play their sport, and that's how every person in the world has ever learned to ride a bike. You gotta start pedaling and you gotta just keep going until you figure it out, right?
Absolutely. It's learning to embrace wabi sabi.
Yeah,
And it's like a Japanese aesthetic to like really embrace the flaws and the imperfections. They'll even make a wood table and they'll purposely leave a little knot or a mark in it so then it's not perfect. And if we can embrace more of the wabi sabi in our life and being open to the outcome instead of being persistent on the outcome, allowing things to unfold as they naturally will, and that brings in more magic into our life. And it also makes the whole experience more enjoyable. Right? And
Definitely.
that's just part of it. Something that we were talking about even before we started recording is like enjoying the whole process of life
Yeah.
and not being so persistent on having the very specific outcome. So how does that help you as like an artist with what you were saying too is that perfectionism really prevents a lot of people from even taking the first step.
Yeah.
And I think it's also wild that so many of us, we start doing something new. And if we don't get it right out the gate, we're like, nope, it's not my thing. So, how has letting go of an outcome and letting go perfectionism helped you as an artist?
I think it's been really insightful as a creative process to sit with an idea for a moment and to quickly act on ideas rather than sitting with them for too long. I
Mm.
think that is one of the more important aspects of art is its decision making and it's being able to explain why you make decisions. That's one of the things that I was taught in art school by professional artists is that if you want to be a professional, you have to be able to explain your reasoning for doing what you did. To a huge extent, I think that's very true if you want your art to be meaningful. And I think that there's a lot of art that sort of falls flat because it has no meaning or purpose or idea or feeling or expression or intent behind it. I think intent is the entire purpose of art or creative endeavors in the first place is bringing an idea from an intention to life, to the physical reality, and starting with an idea that is inspiring, exciting, or passionate, something that excites you, brings more energy, and pursuing that as far as you can, moving on to the next idea that you get after that gets you into the flow of things.
Mm.
It gets you into the flow process of seeing what's next and working with it rather than trying to steer everything in one direction. It's like the idea of improv. It's
Mm.
yes and. It's
Mm-hmm.
always yes and. You're painting and you're painting over here and then you accidentally make a stroke down there and you're like, whoa, I didn't mean to do that. Like you said earlier, learning to work with what's undesirable and turning it into something that is more desirable.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same way that our mind works when something comes up that's undesirable in our mind, a bad habit or bad thought or something that we don't want to keep repeating and we catch ourselves, what are we going to do? Are we just going to keep thinking that thought or are we going to change that and change it into something that feels better? That's how we move the needle forward.
One of the most important things is intention and our attention because we need to have the intention in order for us to be able to really make a positive impact. And the attention part is what we focus on grows, right? So,
Right.
intention and attention, I think that they are two very important things as an artist, as a business owner, as really everyone in between.
Yeah.
I love that. And when you are making your art and putting together like this whole idea, how has slowing down, process of slowing down and being intentional with the intent and attention, how does that help you as an artist or sparking up passions and purposes?
I tend to take a lot of time with my paintings. I rarely just bust something out in a few hours because, for one, I like to sit back and let it simmer in my mind and marinate and see what's going to work with other ideas that come up maybe later on as well. Relating that to most recently being this remodeling experience, I've taken it pretty slow with that as well. I've been looking at everything from different angles and perspectives and making sure that I have all the proper tools ahead of time to complete a project the right way the first time, things like that. Just slowing down and intentionally thinking about the next step and letting your subconscious mind do a lot of the work for you, I think has
Mm,
a huge benefit into keeping your brain space more cleared up.
yeah.
Um, Part of that is also like your subconscious mind being able to free up that space and move on to the next thing as
Hmm.
well. Um, so being conscious of how you're working with your subconscious mind, how you're training yourself, and just going through the creative process, knowing that things are going to change and that things are always evolving and that the ideas that come up are always built off of the knowledge that you've had up to this point, but you can always add more knowledge to that to make it even better. Being slow and intentional means that you're allowing it time to be at its highest potential that it could be, whatever
Mhm.
it is, whatever you're putting your attention towards.
I think there's a lot of wisdom in that because in our current society, we have this instant gratification. We want it now, from being able to go through a drive through and getting food within just a few minutes, from being able to go on our phone and get all of this information, from even going online and being able to have 2 day shipping. Instant gratification that we have, which is a whole can of worms in regards to what that's doing to our dopamine. We are very dopamine driven society. And so, something that I do suggest for some people is like doing a dopamine detox to be able to get everything back in level. And so, really, what I'm hearing is that with you slowing down and really being intentional, and then when you do cross that line, like you have this moment of satisfaction, like true dopamine, and being able to take that and then copy and paste that to other areas in your life instead
Yeah,
of being like this hustle go, just being able to let things unfold as they will.
yeah, definitely. And I think going back to the intention of things, you want to keep the same intention. If you're starting out with the intention that I'm doing this in order to grow, I'm doing this in order to train my body and my mind to experience uncomfortable emotions, but also work through them and create
Mhm.
something new out of them. When that intention falls off and in the process, that's when you put it aside for a minute. And then you come back to it when you're motivated to start it again because you've got that intention of, I'm doing this to grow. But when it becomes, this is so frustrating, I want to rip my hair out and I don't want to do it again, then you've pushed it a little too far, right? So it's time to just bring it back to that intention of, we're doing this to grow and move forward. And if it's straying from that intention, maybe we need to put it aside for a moment.
Come back with fresh eyes. Because if we're trying to make some art, write some music, poetry, a blog, a business post, or whatever it is, people are going to be able to feel that on an energetic level. And so I do think that there's a lot of medicine in being able to take a pause, take a step back, go do something else to feel better,
Yeah,
and then to come back with fresh eyes and then be able to re-spark the intention. And so then make sure that it's going out into the world the way that it was intended, whatever that thing is.
exactly. Yeah. And with artwork, that's also a big lesson that I've learned, at least, is that you have to step back, physically step back from your painting. Because if you're looking into the little details and you're working too close to it, you're missing the big picture. And
Yeah.
those little tiny details that you're making may not even make a huge difference in the grand scheme of the picture. One of the most interesting things about art that I've found over witnessing people's experiences with my art is the vastly different experiences that people have with it when they're first viewing it. I've had many different types of reactions, but so many people that have just misinterpreted what they're seeing until they get up closer to it or
Mm.
see something that they want to see, but then realize that maybe it's not as what they wanted or it's not the same, but stepping back from it and seeing how it is being interpreted from a distance as well as up close. There's, again, two different perspectives, a contrast of experiences, the light and the dark of being up close or being farther back, that make the difference in shaping the overall experience.
Then we go back a week later, maybe we're in like a different place because we always grow, we're always changing. One of my favorite pieces of artwork that you did so far is your Ganesh.
Yeah,
And there's so much going on in a very beautiful way. And so you can get super close to it and you can see all these like little fun, like little details. When you step back, you have this bigger picture, and it's just like this really just fascinating. So I actually bought your blanket. So I sleep with my Lord Ganesh. Like it's actually quite big and it's like really comfortable too.
Heck yeah.
Lord Ganesh blanket, and it's just really fun being able to have your artwork.
Nice. Last year, we worked together a bit with your hypnosis and doing some work on my subconscious, getting my head straight, because I've been struggling with some stuff and just motivation in general, mostly. I think confidence was a big thing, but being able to jump back into having the motivation to get started, have some direction, have some purpose behind my passion again, and being able to start that painting, it was a huge step in itself. But then after beginning it, jumping back into the process of discovering and painting and having these ideas come to me. A lot of artists, I'm sure, have experienced it where you just jump out of bed in the morning. You're like, God, I've got all these great ideas because I spent last night painting and now it's just been simmering for 8 hours and now I have to put it down. Dang it, I have to go to work. I have to wait 8 hours to put this on the canvas. And then all day long, you're like, let's get off work. Let's go paint. So getting that excitement back was awesome. It was great. And I had a lot of motivation to start moving the needle forward on that and just do a little bit here and there when I could, and just do an hour a night if I could. For me, it's like experiencing the process for the first time every time, because it's always discovery. It's always unfolding in a different way than I expect. I'll have an idea and I'll start moving into that idea, and then as my thoughts are wandering as I'm painting, it turns into something else, or I start making mistakes and then I have to turn it into something else, and that turns out being even more beautiful than what I had planned before. So just trusting the process, trusting the breaks, the time in between, like I was talking about with the intention of it. I intended it for this painting to become Lord Ganesh, and then Lord Ganesh is the remover of obstacles, and the time that I spent meditating and allowing or waiting for the time where I felt the obstacles were removed, that was the ideal time to explore it more. When I felt there were obstacles starting to come up, then it was time to put it down. And being able to listen to those cues as well, being able to be in tune with my body and know when I started pushing myself too much was an important part of just that connection with myself. A lot of us lose that connection with ourselves because we're not listening to our bodies and what they need. Their hydration, their sleep, their rest, a creature that we need to care for. And our minds often take precedent and say, no, we don't need sleep. We can sleep when we're dead. We don't need to eat. We can eat tomorrow. We need to work right now. We need to get more done. And that's not always the answer, right?
My body is a creature I need to take care of. It's true though, right? And oftentimes
you wouldn't treat your dog like that, right? You'd feed your dog.
not.
Yeah, you'd feed your dog every day. You take up your dog for walks. You make sure your dog has water. It's a good meat soup. And take care of it.
It does so much for us. And oftentimes we just become like floating heads, and we do become so disconnected from our body, and our body talks to us all the time, but we just aren't really so connected. And if we go so long without listening to our body, we get hit in the head by what I call a cosmic 2x4. And so when we can listen to our body, then we are going to avoid the cosmic rake. We're going to avoid the cosmic 2x4 that could put us out of commission for a week or 2 weeks, 3 weeks, or even longer than that. So it's like our body talks to us, our body is wise. Now, I'm going to see what I can do about taking a picture of your Lord Ganesh painting and like putting that up, because again, like it also just has a lot of meaning to me, because I know that's something that you were starting to work on before, and then you finished it when we were doing hypnosis together. So like it has a special place in my heart.
Yeah, no, and I completely attribute that to the work that we did together. It was a really deep dive into my subconscious and the things that I was struggling with, alchemizing those into a painting of the remover of obstacles, removing those obstacles from my mind and getting them out onto the bed sheet, which was what actually was from the original. Experiencing that process again was incredibly satisfying and healing for me. I hope that I can share that experience with others because I think we all are creative beings. All of us are designed to create things from nothing. We are designed to create our lives with our intentions, with where we want to go, what we want to do, what we want to experience in this life. That being in that process intentionally is how we cultivate more strength in that in our lives in general.
Absolutely. I actually wanted to take a moment for you to share about your work
Yeah.
with Art Cannabis and everything.
Yeah, that's an excellent new development in my story and another trusting the process thing that I've been leaning into more in the last year. Um, so I believe it was actually just before we had worked together. I had gotten a sample of this flower, this cannabis from Art Cannabis, and it was really awesome artwork of this like watercolored octopus and had a bunch of colors, and it was totally speaking my language as an
Of course,
artist.
and also as a squid.
And as a squid, yeah, of course, sea creatures. I had to investigate further, and there was a little QR code, and it said "Submit your art." So I was like, "What does that mean? I can submit my own art? I can put my stuff on this as well? Why not?" So I look at it, I dig into it a little deeper, and it says submit your pictures, and I started doing that, and I sent a couple over, and they emailed me back. Wow, this is awesome artwork. We'd love to work with you, put your stuff on some labels, and you get a little kickback per label that's sold. It's not a lot, but you're still getting your artwork out there. And I was like, oh, this sounds amazing. Of course, why wouldn't I do this? I took a shot in the dark and it's working out, so let's follow this rabbit hole and see where it goes. And that was a pretty exciting thing to get my artwork out there and actually start getting some royalties for labels and pictures of my art sold. That's a huge step as an artist, as a professional in the right direction. They invited me to be a guest artist at some of their vending events. So I got to go to a few different stores, set up a painting booth, and do some live painting, share my artwork, and talk to customers and hang out. And they really liked working with me, and I really liked working with them. It just seemed like it was the perfect blend of all of my skills, talents, and as a bud tender myself, I have the know-how and knowledge about cannabis and its medicinal benefits and everything that's wonderful about that and how it can help people. The fact that Art Cannabis promotes artists, gives back to the community in that way, promoting them, bringing more awareness to artwork in the community and artists in the community. And with their other company, Rescue Cannabis, which is their outdoor flower, they give back to animal charities and humane societies all over the state. So they're giving back to the community in very physical, tangible ways with their business that is very centered around highly medicinal and very clean and pure cannabis. All of those things are highly aligned with everything that I'm working towards of sharing relief with people. Cannabis is one of those ways that I've found relief, as well as artwork, having something beautiful to look at while you're enjoying your relaxing time. It's always a benefit rather than staring at TV and dumb yourself down. It's there's always other options, and I love being one of those other options, and I love being able to support their missions and also encourage other artists to submit their artwork because it's made a huge difference in my life. The owners of this company are fantastic guys. They're awesome to work with. They're super nice and always excited to get more artwork submissions and everything. So it's really cool working with them. It's really cool seeing the mission and the brand grow, and it's all very aligned with what I'm doing to give more back to the community, pursue art, be more of an inspiration for other people to pursue their creativity and be physically in front of different people. I get to go all over the east side of Washington and visit all these different stores and meet different people and have a small impact on everybody's life that I get to meet and chat with. It's really fulfilling for me personally, taking the best parts of all of these different jobs that I've had and formulating my own business ideas moving forward as well. So I'm going to, at some point, be building my business around being a coach or a guide or a mentor for other people to pursue creative practices or even begin in exploring their creativity through whatever mediums they may choose, whether it be painting, sculpting, crafts, building. I'd want to be there as support for anybody to pursue this creative process and have the support they need to be able to navigate it and be successful with it and grow from it. But it really helps to have a guy on the front of the boat that's done it a couple times. So.
Absolutely. Just imagine if there were more businesses and more organizations who took a cut of the profit and they started to make their donations to animal rescues, helping out the houseless, and helping people with their medical debts or whatever it is, just how much of a different world we would live in.
Right.
And my second thought was how exciting that you've been able to get to this place, like in your career, all because you acted off of your highest excitement. Like getting that little artwork on the cannabis like thing and then submitting it, and then just going from there. And now you're here, and this is a stepping stone for your next journey, which is going to be helping other artists start their career and start their passion. And I think that many of us, like you were saying earlier, like we're all an artist. There's an artist inside of all of us. One of my writing essays that I did in college was called Artistic Bones, where I was talking about how everyone is an artist and how everything is art, very similar to what we were talking about earlier, where it took an artist to make this table, but we don't think about it because it's just a table. Like this pot, this elephant, like everything is art when we can look at it like that. And I think that there's so many of us that want to be an artist. There's so many of us that want to cultivate that part of us. But then it's like, I can't make a living off of this. But that's not true though. And so then having a guide, such as yourself, of being able to help someone, give them a paddle and give them tools so then they can navigate the river a lot easier. So I think that's really necessary and very wholesome.
You have to have the proper tools to do a job the right way. You could, but it'd take a hell of a lot longer with a hammer and a nail.
I was like,
I used to do it that way, but it took a lot of guys also. Just having the tools and the skills and just having a guide in support, I think is a huge thing. Having somebody that believes in you when you find it hard to believe in yourself, which you provided with me, was extremely helpful. And having somebody there to say, this is part of the process. You're having a hard time because this is the part that is challenging you to grow more right now.
No mud, no lotus.
Exactly. And having support in that process, being able to go through it, to check in, to know that the mistakes and the fumbles and the setbacks are all moving you forward, even though they don't feel like it. And that 1% in the right direction is still forward momentum. Those reminders are huge. And I think rather than somebody paying $50,000 to go to art school like I did, I could provide that for much more affordable price and also get the satisfaction out of it myself as well. Because I feel, again, going back to your original first question that started all of this, my purpose is to inspire and share this gift that I have and that others have within themselves so that we can all experience more joy in the creative process, because that is the process of life. Life is a creative process, and if we're not in that creative process intentionally, then life, of course, is going to run us over. We are in control of our life, and nobody else is in control of our life except us. When we take control and start shaping it and molding it to where we want, it takes time, but it's all part of the process in getting it to where we want it to go towards. We can never fully have it exactly the way we want, but we can always take steps where we want to go and see where those lead us.
Yeah. I have two different thoughts. Like one of them was this quote from Alan Watts, where I don't have it memorized exactly, but Alan Watts is basically talking about how we're all going down this stream All of us are going down the stream. Some people think they're swimming upstream. And when they think they're swimming upstream, that they're not going downstream, but they still are. So the idea is to be able to surrender to the river and really harness the river. When you can do that, you can then be in the flow. The second thought that I had about that was that we all have free will. And so we're all going down this path together, but how we go down the path is our choice. We can skip, we can dance, we can roll, but we need to be making our way down the path, right? So I did want to ask you though, for anyone out there who is feeling creative blocks or they feel stuck in their creativity, because I know that you've also been there before too.
Yeah.
What piece of advice would you have for them?
I think the 5-minute rule is the greatest thing that I've ever learned.
Tell me more.
And it's essentially just sit down with whatever it is that you have been avoiding doing, whatever it is that you feel you need to do. Sit down and start it for 5 minutes. Just set a timer for 5 minutes and start it. And it doesn't matter for that 5 minutes if it's good or bad or ugly or whatever it is. If you want to do it, sit down for 5 minutes. And somewhere within that 5 minutes, if you're doing the thing, usually your brain kicks in and goes, let's get curious about this. What makes this more
Not so
interesting?
bad.
This isn't too bad. And then you usually go a lot more than 5 minutes. I think with the initial stage fright that a lot of people get of starting something new or staring at a white canvas and having all of these ideas or having your mind just as white as the canvas is. Both things have happened to me many times, but just starting with the first idea that you have and going with it, starting for 5 minutes is an excellent way to start. And if even that feels out of reach, just sitting for 5 minutes and getting curious about what that first step might look like. Curiosity is the fuel for any creative process, and you have to have some curiosity of what's going to happen next. And whether it be what's going to happen if I do this paint stroke this way, what's going to happen if I don't do this thing. Just sitting and being creative and being okay with your mind wandering for 5 minutes is the most basic way to start. And then from there, taking action, just doing something for 5 minutes, whatever it is, just if it's exciting to you, start it. And if it feels awkward, keep going.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that rule, like the 5 minutes. Similar to what I do with a lot of my weight loss clients. So like a lot of my weight loss clients, some of them do go to the gym and do movement, but most of them don't. And so I tell them like, okay, we're going to start to do some movement. So they're like, "Aw." I'm like, for 1 whole minute a day. And it's very similar to what you're talking about. Because if we are just like doing it for 1 whole minute or even 5 minutes, more than likely we're going to get into it. We're going to get the ball rolling and we're going to go past a minute. We're going to go past 5 minutes. Yeah. It might only be like 10 or 15 minutes, but that's fine. And it might only be like 5 minutes too. And that's fine. What's emotion stays emotion, and getting that ball going, tipping the scales, tipping the pointer in that direction, and just focusing on even 1%, a little bit every single day. Yep. Is there anything else that you would like to share before we begin wrapping everything up?
I want to add on to that thought of the one other thing that I've been thinking about a lot lately is this idea of cognitive dissonance. And that being one of the biggest motivators for change and manifestation, as a lot of people put it. It's really more of a science of if you're telling your brain that something is different than what you're experiencing, your brain is going to find the reasons to make that true. Yeah. So if you start telling yourself, I'm going to start this creative thing, I'm going to sit down for 5 minutes and start my craft, or I'm going to sit down for 5 minutes and I'm going to paint that canvas. If you tell yourself at some point during that day, you're going to have to sit down and start that painting for 5 minutes, or else your brain is going to feel like it's going crazy because you've been telling yourself that all day long. And if you don't do it, then your brain's, this isn't right. So it's the dissonance where your brain goes, nope, this needs to mesh. We need to make this true. So we're going to do what we need to do, make it true. And I think that is a huge benefit of training your brain, training your subconscious to, with the intention that you want, the intention being to start for 5 minutes for people that are just starting out, or the intention being to get back to your creative practice.
Yeah. I think it's so important to be able to make promises to ourselves, small promises, and following through with those promises. Because for one, that's going to help our creativity, that's going to help our confidence within ourselves, increasing our confidence so then we can trust ourselves more.
Yeah.
And something that I also teach is I teach people about the reticular activating system, which is very similar to what you're talking about. So that goes into what we focus on grows, where this actually happens quite a bit when like someone is like on the market to go buy a new car. I'm going to get like a blue Subaru Crosstrek. And then out of nowhere, we start seeing these blue Subaru Crosstreks everywhere. We're like, whoa, what did everyone get this car? It's because your brain is now looking for the patterns. Your brain is now like looking for it.
Because it's important.
And the same thing happens a lot of times with women that are pregnant. They start noticing everyone else is like pregnant too. But it starts noticing the patterns because it's important. So very similar to what you're referring to, when we can tell ourselves that, then I'm going to be doing this thing for 5 minutes, our brain is then going to start like making that happen and looking for the opportunities for that to happen.
Yeah. And I think that goes even deeper into once you start into the process and you start getting into the creative process regularly, your resilience for the ups and downs builds because you're in the creative process. You're thinking about it externally as well as experiencing it internally in your life. When you step back from a painting and you're thinking about this external process of putting the colors down and what's going to be the next layer and planning for that next step, it's the same as in your life, going through that process of, okay, we had a bad day today, but tomorrow we can make it better and we can change some things here to make it not go that way tomorrow. There's always a way to improve and grow. And if you're more conscious of the process of going through the ups and downs, working with what you have and flowing with it rather than resisting it and trying to stuff it in a box, then applying that to life is a lot easier and it's more natural because you're already doing it all the time.
Right. And it just really helps us build up the calluses to be able to do it. And then that really helps take our ceiling and then increase the ceiling. And so then this way we're able to see more opportunities, act on more opportunities, and really live a more satisfying and fulfilling life. And I think that is, I know that is our birthright as humans.
Yeah, that's all of our goal. To live more fulfilled, satisfied, and free. And if we can experience the freedom that comes with working with the process rather than against it, that's a huge step in the right direction to creating true freedom of time and space and money freedom. Because when you've got control of the freedom of yourself and your emotions, then you have very little holding you back from conquering the other things in life.
So speaking of freedoms, where can people find you? So if someone wants to go check out your artwork, if they want to go get some Squid Divine swag, like the cell phone cases, the beanies, the shirts are super good quality as well too, like a Lord Ganesh blanket, where can people find you?
So Squid's Divine Creations, SQUIDIVINECREATIONS.
Perfect. Yeah. And I'll go ahead and I'll put that down. Can people find you like anywhere else, or is that going to be the best place to find you?
So that is my personal website that I've built over the last year. I've added products like you mentioned, hats, shirts, mugs. You can get your own mug, which we talked about one time of having coffee with Ganesh talks. Those are available on the website. I've got blankets, I've got metal prints, I've got all sorts of really cool swag on there, and a couple different ways you can either donate to my causes, you can download my music from that website. You can also find the social media links to Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, all of that at the top of the page as well. So that is the homepage where you can find links to everywhere else you can find me on the internet. I'm going to be probably most active on Instagram moving forward since this whole drama with TikTok, and I've lost a lot of faith in social media in general, but I do realize that it's a powerful way to connect with community, and I still want to pursue ways to do that. So looking forward, whatever social medias may come up and be the new popular thing, that's going to be where you're going to find me or links to me on my website. The world is just changing so rapidly. I'm going to be building my website mostly for my purposes of marketing my services as a coach or guide for creative practices. And
Love that.
That will be the hub where I will have a definite place to go to, whether social medias come and go. That will be the place you can find me.
Mhm.
Contact me through there. You can email me, you can request services, you can request artwork, and you can keep an eye out for other really cool things that are going to be coming up in the future because I've got other really big ideas.
If someone was to reach out to you, like email you, be like, hey, I am an artist and I'm really wanting to get this ball rolling, would you be willing to jump on a phone call with them and see
Of course,
if it would be a good fit?
I would be totally open to do that. I'm currently just figuring out what the pieces are to make advertisements that are actually going to reach new people and have a system set up to where I can accept calls through a calendar app and schedule those things so I can be available for those. The computer logistics side is where I've struggled a lot. The fact that I built my own website and got everything up was a huge accomplishment for me, and plugging in those other pieces, I'm sure it'll just take a little bit of time, but it shouldn't be too terrible.
I've got someone I could probably
it.
connect you to. I actually interviewed her. Her name is Crystal, and so she's spent
cool.
many years in like the whole tech world. But we can talk about that later.
Definitely a lot of things I could improve upon, and always open to connecting with new people in that way.
That is one thing that many things I've noticed, but that is definitely one thing that I've also noticed about you too, that you are really good at making true, genuine connections. And you are just really good at being a lighthouse and bringing people in and then building the sense of community. And I really think that also has to do with how much of a safe person you feel as well too. Like you are just very like safe masculinity, and we need more men out there in the world like you.
Thank you.
So thank you, of course. Thank you again for also being here and chatting.
Of course.
Question for you guys: if you could put down in the comments, what kind of acts of self-care are you currently doing? Is it art? Is it listening to music? Is it going to a deprivation tank? So go ahead, drop that down below. And if you want to reach out to Squid, check out his website. Go ahead and check that down below as well too. Thank you for hanging out with us, and I hope this was able to inspire you to act on your highest excitement, your purpose, and your passions. Signing off until next time, take care and breathe deeply. Thank you.